And this lesson is entitled, Forgiveness Leads to a Healthy Life. We have a little background here for you. Cows and birds. We like teaching outside, it's more natural. And my brain works better outside. So that's what we're doing. So this slide is entitled, American Express, Forgiveness Makes Money. Now, how does forgiveness make money? Well, they did an experiment. Stanford University in Northern California did an experiment where they put a number of employees at American Express through a forgiveness process, some workshops and some work after the workshop. And then they followed them, and they wanted to see if forgiving had an effect on business. In other words, did their sales increase? And think, what would forgiving have to do with sales? Well, what they found out is that the people who took the forgiveness process, or went through the forgiveness process, their sales went up between 50% and 400%. 400% means their sales increased 4 times over what everyone else was doing. Between 50% and 400%. And so what's the reason? Well, the reason is that forgiveness is a very negative emotion. And it's draining us subtly, and we don't realize it. So when you hold on to resentment, it is, it's not a happy emotion. It's not a positive emotion. And it's working in a subtle way to burden us, as we said in in lesson 3. It's burdening us. So when people forgave, what happened was they became much more positive. They became happier. All that energy, you see, when you hold on to resentment, it requires energy to hold on to it, to keep it alive. And because we don't want to feel it, we suppress it, and it requires energy to suppress it. So we're actually using up a lot of energy to suppress, to keep our resentment alive and to suppress it. And so when they let it go, all that energy that was being drained by holding on to resentment now could be redirected positively. So they didn't have to put out energy negatively. And so all of a sudden they were happier, they're more enthusiastic, brighter, more positive, and as a result, their sales increased. So who would think that by forgiving, salesmen do better? But they did. Isn't that interesting? And in fact, I've taught forgiveness in corporations as a success tool. The main reason is because you become very positive when you forgive. Because in order to forgive, you have to be positive. It's a very positive emotion. And when you become positive, obviously, you become more productive, more creative, you get along better with people, people like you more. It just works well in all ways. You can't lose. Forgiveness is good for your health, as we said in an earlier lesson. Resentment is draining your immune system. I recommend you go online and Google forgiveness and health, forgiveness and cancer. It's a little scary what they're finding, and more research is coming out. That how much resentment can cause a person to become extremely sick, and how it can cure people of very critical ailments. In some schools of medicine, when people are critically ill, the first thing they'll do is put them through a forgiveness process to clear that negativity out. And sometimes, actually, that's all they needed. So that's something serious for you to check out. And that's why taking a forgiveness course is so important, because you don't want to be carrying it around because it's self-destructive. Forgiveness heals our heart. When we forgive, a burden on our heart is lifted. As we did in lesson 3, the potato story, we felt the burden. We did the exercise, feel the burden of what we're carrying around with us. We don't realize what we're carrying around until we step back and allow ourselves to feel that burden. And why don't we feel it? Because it's a negative feeling, we don't want to feel it, so we suppress it, or we pretend that it's not there. A lot of people have forgiveness issues and they pretend they don't. A lot of people in my workshops say, I'm not sure if I have an issue. I mean, I had this little problem with my sister or my uncle or my boss. I'm not sure it's really an issue. I can guarantee if you're not sure it's an issue, I'm sure it is an issue. Because if it's not an issue, you would be sure it's not an issue. And if you're not sure it's not an issue, it definitely is an issue. That's my personal experience. And in fact, we have many resentment issues we don't realize. We may have, I know people who actually have done exercises to go through their whole life and look at all the resentments they've had, and they've come up with figures like hundreds. When I was 5, I had this issue with this friend, and then when I was 7 with this teacher, and then with my uncle when I was 9, and you know, we brushed them off like, no, that was nothing, but they're damaging our heart. And when our heart gets damaged, then once burnt, twice shy. It affects our relationships. It affects the way we think. It affects the way we act. It affects the way we make our intentions. It affects what we think we can do. It affects what we want to do. So many things we want to do that we don't do because we were hurt in the past and we're afraid we're going to be hurt again. If we forgive that person who hurt us and clear that out, then it allows us to go forward. But if we don't, that action of that relationship of the past is now affecting us presently. And although we want to go this direction, we say, I can't. I don't have trust because of that past event. So we want to clear that out because it burdens our heart and it doesn't allow us to go forward in a way we want to. Forgiveness heals our soul. To err is human. To forgive is divine. As we said in Lesson 3, when you forgive, you come to this level of divine consciousness. So, I'm a spiritual teacher and a spiritual practitioner. 47 years I've been practicing spiritual life in the Eastern tradition called the Bhakti tradition. And I can say one of the best things I've done after studying hundreds of books, thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of hours of meditation and teaching, I can say one of the best things I did was to learn how to forgive. It was so powerful as a spiritual process of purification. It required so much surrender and upliftment and purity and spiritual alignment, and I'm so happy I did it. The transformation that takes place when you forgive causes you to have such qualities as love, strength, wisdom, happiness. It draws them out. In other words, you can't forgive if you don't manifest these qualities. As we said in an earlier lesson, in Lesson 3, compassion is the antitoxin to the soul. So, it's with compassion, with kindness, with tolerance, with simplicity, with a loving heart, you can forgive. And so, the forgiveness process forces you to bring these qualities out. That's why it's such a powerful spiritual process. And that's why it's such a contradiction. If people are practicing, so-called practicing spiritual life, but they're holding on to resentment, it's such a paradox. Because resentment has nothing to do with spirituality. Nothing. It has everything to do with just blunt, gross, materialistic consciousness. Hatred, vengefulness, pride, control. That's all material consciousness. And isn't it interesting how many of us who feel spiritual, who say we're spiritual, who even have a spiritual practice, at the same time hold on to resentment? It's such a huge paradox. So here's the reflection. Which of these qualities do you feel you most need to work on? So here's a list. So we want you to go down this list and look at some of these qualities which are related to resentment, either as negative or positive. And then see which one of them, or maybe you need to work on all of them, and start thinking about how to practice these qualities more. Tolerance. How can I be more tolerant? In what situations do I need to be more tolerant? What is my weak tolerance link? What is it that really just pushes my buttons that I need to work on? Patience. You ever hear the saying, be patient while you're waiting? So one thing is I'm patiently waiting, but the other thing is while you're patiently waiting, be patient while you're patiently waiting, because sometimes, if you know what I mean, there's an endless loop of patience. I become impatient with my patience. So where do I need more patience? What areas of my life do I lack patience? Kindness. Who do I need to be more kind to? Who am I being unkind to? Maybe I need to be more kind to myself. A lot of us, that's where the kindness is most needed. Self-compassion, self-love, so take care of myself. Spend more time taking care of myself physically, emotionally, and spiritually. Sometimes we neglect ourselves. And if you're not happy, if you're not inspired, if you're not healthy, you can't help anybody. And if you're happy and healthy and inspired, just by your presence you help people. Compassion. Who needs my compassion? Where am I not being compassionate? What is going on inside of me that I'm not manifesting the compassion? What is it? Self-centeredness, selfishness, I just don't care about other people. What's going on? What do I need to work on? And who can I give more compassion to? Acceptance. What's going on in my life that I'm not accepting? What's going on that I can't change? What goes on a daily basis that I can't change, that I'm not accepting? What do I need to learn about acceptance? Why do I try to control things I can't control? Why don't I learn that I can't control? Why after experience that I can't control and I get frustrated and I burn people out, am I not learning? What do I need to learn about acceptance? What am I pretending not to know? What ignorance is there? Appreciation. Appreciation is a manifestation of our own self-acceptance and self-love, because it's very difficult to appreciate others when you don't appreciate yourself. And you'll find that people who are the most appreciative of others are also the most self-appreciative. They're not people who are struggling with a negative image of themselves. They're not people who are struggling in their lives with depression or serious difficulty. They're people who are grounded, they're people who are pure, they're people who are happy, they're people who have a high sense of self-worth. They can appreciate others. So if you see you're not appreciating others, probably what it means is there's a tendency to bring others down, to be critical. And probably what that means is there's some things going on inside of you that you're not happy with about yourself, and you're seeing them in others, and it's bothering you. So it's something to reflect on. If I'm not appreciating as much as I should, why? And who are the people I should appreciate the most? And why am I not appreciating them? Balance. What's going on in my life? Am I working 14 hours a day, neglecting my health, neglecting my family, neglecting my spiritual life? Where am I out of balance? And if I am out of balance, the question is why? When we're out of balance, what happens is I succeed at work by failing in my relationships. I succeed in relationships by failing at work. I succeed at work by failing in my spiritual life. We want to be balanced. We don't want to succeed at one thing at the cost of another. We don't want to succeed by failing. You understand? Or I succeed in my spiritual life, and my material life is a total mess. My relationships are a mess. I have no money. We don't want to. We want to be balanced in everything. So where am I out of balance? Where do I need to be more grounded? Am I dealing with people properly? Am I dealing with myself properly? And last, love. Where are the people I'm supposed to, who are the people I'm supposed to love? Am I loving them? Can I love people I don't know? Can I love animals? These are all good questions to reflect on.